I remember when Reagan was elected and reelected in particular, but also when Bush was reelected, like there seems to be
the precedent was us, in the early 2000s, this incredible blogosphere that came out of nowhere. And, one of the reasons, Bush wasn't able to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish, which was basically create a permanent Republican majority by wiring the system, was this kind of steady resistance that was, just turning him into a laughingstock.
But I feel a greater demoralization in this era than then. Like, I mean, and it was, 2004, into 2005 was demoralizing, but this seems greater. And it seems to me that what Bush did was he took aim at Social Security, and that was like basically like the one thing that snapped everybody out of it and got people
taking aim at comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah, and he undermined his own base by doing that too. And I get the sense, like, I'm looking at Trump with this whole sort of immigrant thing. He threatens Mexico, and to basically, we better get to essentially net zero immigration. Well, we're already almost there.
Right.
And so it's like he's coming in and saying, like, it's like me walking out right now at 12 at 10 of 1 and go, it better be about an hour after noon, 7 minutes from now, or there's going to be hell to pay. And then 7 minutes later, it's okay. I've gotten my way, and he takes the credit from it. He's smart about this.
Yeah. But that's the scariest part, is that he has nothing that he can deliver, right? It's like it's all fake promises. And, part of it says, oh, well, once people see the inflation and da-da-da-da-da. But that's the scary part about, that's why this word fascism is so useful, right? Because anything bad can be blamed on the scapegoats, right? The deep state got in our way, right? So let's destroy the deep state, right? We had to, we weren't able to, lower the size of the military because, there are too many, whatever is the enemy du jour, kind of burrowing within the Pentagon, right? So I don't have any good answers for that, right? I'm hearing very scary speculation, that, and I'm just going to say it. I don't have any evidence yet. Let me just say that this is, kind of very off the top of my head speculation that I'm looking into, that, when there are jobs that can't get done because people getting deported, well, maybe they'll turn to, prison labor, right? And you get this spiraling downward, more and more hatred, more and more exploitation of vulnerable people. One of the things my alderman in Chicago, Andre Vasquez, who's been in charge of, kind of making kind of migrant policy for Chicago, he points out is, there's going to be a serious problem with crime with the migrants who come, but they're going to be the victims of the crime, right? Because they're not going to be able to advert to the authorities. They're not going to be able to go to the cops. They're going to be the most vulnerable people, right? They're going to be taken advantage of. That's, the sick, cynical deal that the Republicans have about immigration is, the cynical ones, know that they can simultaneously get the rubes to want to deport everyone and have the business elites be able to take advantage of their labor, and, nothing will happen. But, now we have this kind of deal that they had with abortion where, maybe the dog is going to catch the car and they won't know what to do with it, right? But I don't really find any comfort in that, because the more kind of distrustful society becomes, and the more elites are able to kind of weaponize people's kind of feral instincts, the harder it is to build something in its stead. Which is why, when societies fall to authoritarian politicians and authoritarian politics, often the only thing that ends it is cataclysm, war.
Right.
So, I'm not glib,
Do we have a historical precedent to something like this? I think
Chile, is an example where a country that, really became a fascist country, And, over the decades, they just kind of ground away at, Pinochet and his followers, and eventually built a democracy. South Africa is another one, right? I mean, you had, white minority rule for, decades and decades and decades. And there was kind of a political and guerrilla effort that, received, basically the moral sympathy of the entire world. Now South Africa is a democracy, right? But that's the kind of level we're talking about, right? And part of the reconstruction that has to happen is, people have to learn that government, run by public spirited people, can actually do things to help them. And that's not something that that's not kind of an intuitive knowledge that people can regain in the course of an election or even 3 elections. That's kind of decades of work right there, right?
Right. And you need a party that is oriented towards both doing and communicating that.
Yes. So we're going to need some doers and we're going to need some communicators. And, hopefully, we'll be hearing from people whose names we don't even know yet that will become household names. Martin Luther King wasn't Martin Luther King. He was just some, 27-year-old, minister who somehow got a job in, Montgomery, a church in Montgomery. And they're like, who are we going to have to run this bus boycott? Oh, let's have this guy Martin do it because no one else wants to do it because it's too much, And, next thing you know, you have the Civil Rights Act 8 years later.
Well, but the leadership point I just want to return to, because I know we're making this case over and over again. But part of why we're in this situation at all is because we've had a leadership vacuum at the top of the Democratic Party for almost in Biden's entire term. I would say really when Build Back Better fell apart, and also seemingly when his cognitive decline kind of accelerated. There was no one at the top of the party communicating the message. Nobody. Yes. And I think it added to this sense of like, well, they're lying about how old he is. And where is that dude? Yeah. We can't trust either side. And then he didn't set Harris up in any meaningful way. They just ran.
I think we're still building back from the distrust, the trust that was lost among working class people because of NAFTA in 1990, whatever.
Exactly. And then the Build Back Better stuff, that and the expiration of the child tax credit, that's Joe Manchin and the Republicans. But that's
I saw a lot of hope. And, I saw my kind of little, margin of hope in the Harris ticket was, the fact that she chose a running mate who was basically like a Scandinavian social democrat and made, the COVID kind of tax rebates permanent in Minnesota, right? But, people didn't buy that either,
Well, they didn't, it seemed like the campaign didn't particularly buy that after, basically starting with the convention. They decided we did enough by actually just picking him and not using him. But be that as it may, I guess here we are. All right, let's just briefly, because also I think an example of this, a version of what you're talking about too, was this Andreessen interview on Joe Rogan. And not just like, if it's just some rando on Joe Rogan who's basically spewing, 100% lies. About the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Lies.
Like 100% lies. Elizabeth Warren controls it. They actually do this. Unbanking was the only thing that he could say. And literally, this is an agency that was telling banks, like, you need to do a better job of making sure that your unbanking isn't so arbitrary and that it's like, and this is supposedly
propaganda. It's like the opposite of what's actually happening.
100%. But Elon Musk, tweets out this thing, says interesting or disturbing or whatever it is. They're using it all as an example to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is inhibiting their ability to use crypto and to use basically, to do money laundering and all this other stuff.
Turn the entire American financial system into a casino where the House has the advantage.
But how, how do we fight that when there is like a this type of communication sort of imbalance?
Told the innocent fly on the wall in his house that OxyContin is a good thing because it keeps the rabble down. Oh, by the way, that was me, as you know.
Yeah, well, no, tell that story, because I don't think people, I know, but I don't think others do.
So you can Google my name and Mark Andreessen, and it's probably next to the long con where I talked about all the grifting that Republicans do. It's probably the most read thing I've ever written. I was flown to San Francisco, all expenses paid, to meet with his book club. Mark Andreessen, the guy who's did something useful. He helped start Netscape in the 1990s and then became a venture capitalist. And I went to his $30 million mansion, which had these priceless works of art by Agnes Martin and Klaus Oldenburg and all these people that his wife was really astonished I knew the names of, because apparently computer bros don't have much culture. And and in the course of the conversation, he comes from rural Wisconsin, and he talked about how much contempt he had for the people he grew up with, and that he wanted all those places to just kind of go away. And if people don't leave, they deserve what they get. And he eventually said, almost a direct quote, "I'm happy for OxyContin and video games to, keep people in line." And the funny thing is, when I pointed that out online, one of the crypto bros said, "Well, it's true. It's just a sociological fact, that people act out." And I was like, well, unless you realize that, economies can be more and less fair, and I did one of these things where I, decided I just needed to win this argument. So I, checked out the crime rate in all these countries. And of course, the ones that had the highest levels of inequality and were the ones that had the highest crime rates and the most people acting out. It's this idea that, anyone can knock down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one. You need to build societies that create trust and respect. And that's hard, right? And these guys just want to rip it down. And they have absolute contempt for human beings and absolute contempt for, they order the world into lesser and greater types of human beings. And they get ordinary people without any power or resources to repeat their propaganda. And they obviously have, the tools, to kind of to choose to what was that other great George W. Bush line, Sam, to vault the propaganda or something like that?
What was it? I'm uniquely American.
Oh yes, that was another one. It was uniquely American to have 4 jobs.
Yeah.
So ultimately, look, this is the bottom line. I have no easy answers, right? There are no easy answers. But really, it's going to come down to kind of, the community of people who, value trust and respect and love and mutuality, just kind of every day doing everything they can in their daily lives, to realize that we're in the fight for our lives and making sacrifices for that fight.
Rick Perlstein, historian, writer at American Prospect, also soon to be. I've heard rumors about something launching at the beginning of the year. Are you at liberty to talk about it?
Kind of a soft launch at the beginning of the year, but Wikipedia, my podcast and Substack, will be launching officially on Valentine's Day as a gift to my readers, who I love so very dearly and people for. And I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews with people really about their lives and the choices they've made in their lives. And it's going to include politics, but it's going to include all kinds of other interests I have too, which is why it's going to be called Wikipedia. And I have a very well-known broadcaster whose name I shall not, because we haven't confirmed it yet, who's, for example, we're going to do an interview about our shared passion for bass fishing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
It rhymes with Machel Radow.
Machel Radow. Okay. Bass fishing. Fly. This is, I assume, with the fly rod.
No. The boring, real kind. You know.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that was the worst promotion I ever gave. No one wants to listen to Toastmasters.
Yeah, you don't want to say. Well, let's keep the door open on the fly fishing part about it.
Yeah,
Rick Perlstein, we will put links to all of your stuff over at majority.fm and the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.